Hello, cosmic missionaries, all of you beautiful human beings out there. Welcome in. Let's lean into Happy Friday. Cheers to the weekend. I have my tea as usual that I got down in Guatemala City when I was on my layover. It's actually a green tea and vanilla infused tea. So I always have to have that when I'm talking to you guys. But like we said, guys, welcome in. Hopefully everyone's going to have a really fabulous weekend. I'm going to say that and put that out into the universe. And also I wanted to say thanks for tuning back, guys. I'm here. Obviously, sorry about the tank top. I just got in from the gym, just had some lunch, and I was getting the message that it's time to just press record and get this out before my life gets busy again. My plans for this Friday is just to be just a regular human being, just feeling into my body. That's what I wrote for this afternoon's mantra, is I'm just going to feel my physical body. And what that means is I'm just going to go out with some friends, going to catch up and have some cocktails. And then my neighbor is having vinyls and martinis later on at his mid-century shop not too far in Hillcrest. So it's just going to be a night of owl, and I just want to get this off of my mind before I start diving into and just letting go of all this esoteric, higher self stuff, and just let go of that and just have a wonderful Friday night, as a regular human being. So that's what I wanted to do on this episode. Like I said, I'm back. The episodes aren't not stopping. I was going to take a break because if you guys noticed, my other video, The Hidden Messages in Water, it was so long and so in depth. I was just like, I need a break. But then another message came to me that I need to continue on. And I came up with a new topic for the week to talk to you guys about. If you guys were on my Cosmic Mission podcast channel on YouTube, you probably saw my little short that I recorded while I was in Nashville. That's what we're kind of talking about today. But let's recap episode 3. If you guys didn't get an opportunity to watch it, it was episode 3 called The Hidden Messages in Water. We touched on, we kind of dissected Dr. Emoto's work about hidden messages in water, which is water remembers, water hears, and water also likes to be in love. It has a message from the Creator, and it's been left behind. And if we love it, and if we love ourselves, like we talked about, the water and the miracles will come out of your body. So hopefully you guys have been practicing that over this last week of telling yourself you love yourself, which is a major thing to do. And you guys also hopefully started talking to your water, see if that worked for you. If not talking to it, wrapping a piece of paper saying I love you on it, or playing some beautiful music, beautiful 528, restorative chimes to it to bring it back to life. So hopefully you guys did that homework assignment while I was taking a break and working and putting this episode together. So that's what I wanted to touch on with you guys today. And then, like I said, I did some other deep journeys into my what I took away from the hidden messages in water. But like I said, guys, we're gonna journey into something new. And what we're going to do this week, and I'm going to start with there's going to be a lot of questions. Let me just intro this with that. It's going to be a lot of questions. So hopefully you guys have brought your minds. Hopefully you guys want to free your minds, and get your journals out, get your pen pads out, because I'm going to be asking you guys a lot of questions about this episode, which is not going to be that long. Just going to tell you guys that it's not going to be as long as episode 3. Episode 4 is going to be probably nothing more than an hour. So we might as well just journey into it. And I'm going to start off with saying, who is that? 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 That is the question on this hour of episode 4, the Cosmic Mission. Who is that? Who is the animator that is inside of you, making this body animate? This is episode 4 of Who is the Animator? And that's what I want to start off with, was questions of who is that? Who are you? And my question to you guys is, if you've never been curious, why haven't you been curious about who animates this body? Who actually is the one inside of you making this all work? And once again, if you haven't asked yourself, start asking yourself questions. Who are you? Why are we here? What are we doing here? And I think that's a great way to start this episode. And like I said, guys, get your pen pals out because it's a lot of questions. And we're just going to start talking about who is the animator? And that's a really big question I had to ask myself as I was going on this journey of discovery, like I talked about in my first episode about how I went to a workshop about a year and a half ago, and the instructor told us to go home and ask ourselves, who are you? And that's what really just started me on this process and asking myself, what is going on in there? And like I said, guys, let's be curious. I want you to be curious if you haven't been so already. Today is that day to be a curious being for once and start asking questions. So, besides who's the animator, I want to say, if you guys haven't asked yourself, ask yourself, who is the animator? Who is the dreamer? And what I mean by dreamer is, we, our higher selves, are in this body dreaming. We're in this body for something. We're in this body to feel the physicalness of the Creator's realm of the physical world, which we call Earth, and then also, everything around us, planets, stars, the moon, all that stuff's physical stuff that we may not be experiencing in the spiritual realm, but here we are as a spirit of light coming down into this body to feel the physicalness. So that's what I want to get over to you guys about how I feel all of this works and why we're all here in these bodies feeling these feelings and emotions of a human being. And I'm here to tell you guys today that if you haven't thought about it already, you are the one animating this body. I'm just want to let you guys know, once again, you are the one animating this body. And I'm going to give you guys 2 examples of what I mean by animations or avatars. This is the avatar body. And I think I touched on that in my first episode when I was just rambling, and when I said, this avatar body, meat suit, whatever people want to call it, this is a different thing from our higher selves. And that's what I'm trying to get over to you guys today about this body. So I'm just going to go call it an avatar body because, if you guys watch the movie, The Avatar with James Cameron, he actually got it right. So if you guys know the main character, Jake Sully, he had an avatar body, but he was the dreamer hooked up to all this machine work. He was the dreamer in a lab remotely as his avatar Navi body is physically moving on the the moon Pandora. So if you guys take that example, the movie got it right. This is all mental. We can mentally move this avatar body, and that's exactly what Jake Sully was doing when he was in the lab dreaming the whole time. Everything that he wanted to do came true, which is essentially what we're doing down here on this planet. Is everything that our soul wants to experience, wants to do, is dreaming, and is using this physical body to take that dream on. And that's the biggest thing I took away from when I started discovering myself is I am the dreamer. I'm the one animating this body. And then I want to say another movie example of using your mind and moving your physical body is The Matrix again. And when Neo finally comes over into the real world, and he gets into the Matrix for the first time, he's having a hard time dealing with what's real, what's a dream. And then that's when Neo says to Morpheus, I thought this wasn't real. And then Morpheus responds by saying, the mind makes it real. And he goes on to say, the body cannot live without the mind. And I found that really profound that I'm going back through this movie and watching it, is because everything they're talking about is everything that we are experiencing as human beings. And when I heard that again, the body cannot live without the mind, that's when I thought of the first Hermetic principle, which is everything is mental. The all is mental. This whole universe is mental. And with that being said, I just want to say once again, guys, this is the mental computer. This brain where our consciousness exists, that is the mainframe, as they say in the Matrix. This is the computer. This computer, you, are animating this physical avatar body. So I don't want you guys to confuse things like we've been taught over the decades or over our lifetimes, is that the body is the one that's telling the brain what to do. But, you know, this is a part of being an awakened human being, is it's the other way around. It's your mind, it's your higher consciousness animating this body. And that's what I want to get over to you guys today, is flip that thinking around to everything comes from the mental. Everything comes from the brain. This is your mainframe, and then it downloads and animates into your body. So we're going to journey into what that really means to mentally make all of this work and really animate. I'm going to move my fingers for you guys, because as I'm talking to you guys, I am mentally telling my hands to move. All at the same time while I'm blinking my eyes, my heart's beating, my lungs are breathing, I'm talking to you guys, my mouth is moving. I am doing so many different things simultaneously with my body. And that is really coming from my mental my consciousness up there. That's where it's really coming from. And today, I want to say once again, I want to chat with all of you guys and encourage everyone to start opening their minds and finally asking the questions. Who is your higher self? Who is the dreamer? And who is that star traveler that is trapped in this human avatar body? And that is a realization I came to fully this last year, or last couple years, on my awakening journey. And I'm going to just go into some fun facts, or at least a fun fact about possession of this avatar body, the gift, the meat suit. In reality, if we think about it, guys, we only have a solid, if we're lucky, we have a solid 75 years in this avatar body. I'm going to say that again, guys. We have an average of 75 to 77 years to dream within this avatar body. And I want to go on to say, why are we all still defending this avatar body when we only have 75 years, maybe 77, to live in this dream, to live in this physical reality, and to live prosperous lives? Why are we defending and only getting to know the avatar when we have ignored the higher being, the one that's really making this all come to life? And that's what we're talking about today. And I'm going to go back into the Matrix, and we're going to define the Matrix, because I was watching the movie last night. It's kind of on my mind. The Matrix is a dream simulator. And what I mean by a dream simulator is that there's a real consciousness, and then there's this physical dream. And, you know, that nursery rhyme when they were talking about row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. I always think nursery rhymes and myths have some truth in it. And I think that little nursery rhyme does have a truth to it, talking about how life is but a dream. And if we think of this life as a dreamscape, if I'm actually in here dreaming through this avatar body, that means the dreamer can create and then bend the rules a little bit. Some physical rules you cannot bend, but as a dreamer, when you guys truly believe that you are the dreamer in this dreamscape, then you can start taking those physical rules and then you can start bending them a little bit to what you want your reality to be. And I think that's where I want to go and share with you guys is that reality of that you can take some of these physical rules and bend them. It's called mental alchemy. And that is in another Hermetic philosophy. If you guys read the book, that's exactly what it's talking about. Instead of a physical alchemy of turning, a lesser metal like nickel into gold, it's the same thing with your mind. You're spinning your reality into gold now. And when you know the physical elements, you know the rules of engagement, now you can spin into gold and you can live your golden life. And that's what I want to get over to you guys about this. But before we get into all that higher self stuff, I wanted to try to paint the picture for you guys on how we even get to this point of ignoring our higher selves. And I want to say the matrix or this physical world has something to do with it. Like we talked about in the last episode, when we're born, we know nothing of this physical world. It's up to our parents and others to, tell us about our world. And the thing about that physical world is when you start to learn it as a little kid between, 0 and 7, all those downloads come to you. And eventually you're going to start creating your ego or your physical ego. And then that's how all of this starts, is learning the avatar body when we're young. That's where it starts, learning about the physical avatar. And then eventually we start to ignore the one who actually, animates this thing. And it's our eternal being, essentially, that's doing that. Your eternal being makes this all come to life. And let's just break down what we do learn in this physical space when we are just coming into our physicalness. I'm going to start with we learn or we download, let's use that. We download our gender. People tell us if we're a boy or girl. And, our parents and everyone else tells us what a boy and a girl does throughout their life. And then eventually as a woman, as a man, people tell us and download to us how we should function by our genders. We also learn our physical name. I feel like in the spiritual world, names do not exist, but in this physical world, they do exist, and we learn that name. So my name is Al in the physical world. I'm not sure what it is in the spiritual world, but I learned at an early age my name is Al. And then another thing we learn down here in the physical world is our skin color. We learn what that is. We learn what it's called. And then we appropriately learn how to be that skin color. That's where the download is coming from. Especially when we're 2 or 3 years of age, or maybe 4, we start to learn our skin color and what all that means. And then secondly, we learn our religion. More than likely, we pick up our religion from our parents. And within that religion, they tell us that we're a natural born sinner. So once again, it's another physical matrix construct that gets wired into your heart frame. Another thing we learn between 0 and 7 is good and bad behavior. How to be a good little boy, how to be a bad little boy, or good girl, bad girl. We learn all these things in the physical realm. We also learn of our social economic status, which means we know the monetary value of money at a very early age, and which is also putting us into another tribe of social economic status and monetary value. It puts our minds into a different mindset where we just want to hang out with the same people who are in the same tribe as us. This is where these constructs are coming from, guys. And then we also learn of our nationality. We learn what country we're from. And then we also start downloading information about what it is to be an American, what it is to be from Mexico, what it is to be from France, what it is to be from Japan. We start getting all these downloads, from our parents and others on how to be these different nationalities. And then I'm going to start going into some other things that we learn. We also learn how to lie during those periods of time. We learn how to keep things in as young children. And then we also learn how to stop asking questions. Prime example, the terrible twos, as they call it. It's not really terrible. It's just the being really coming into the physical body and being conscious of that physical body now. And now the being has a ton of questions of what this is. And, I've never had kids, but I've seen children asking their parents so many questions. And then looking at this now in a different light with different eyes, I can see that the physical being has so many questions about this body. And, if parents aren't patient with their children, A, they can tell them to stop asking questions, or B, they can kind of lean into the questions and give the kids answers. Because now we know is like kids are just curious about their physical world. They want to learn everything about it. And it's really up to our parents and other adults to really guide that spirit to a great existence. And like I said, if we aren't careful enough with our kids will stop asking questions. For example, at an early age, I became shy. I didn't want to ask questions because I didn't want to feel like I was, silly or dumb anymore. So I would just sit there and pretend I would know what was going on, but I really wouldn't know what was going on. And I think most of us have landed there over the years, is like we just rather not ask questions. And, I just want to say personally myself, if as a cosmic traveler as I am, I'm being curious again about everything. I'm opening up my mind. I'm asking questions again. I feel like I'm channeling my childish enthusiasm, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing you guys can hang on to in your life, is bringing back your childish enthusiasm, which is asking questions again. And I think that is a wonderful thing to grasp as you guys are going on listening to this podcast, and you can also take it into your personal lives as well as we move forward out of the podcast, just taking it forward and teaching others. And then also, last thing about our physical downloads is we learn so many different social norms or normatives for us to be accepted by our tribe and belong to our tribe. What does that mean? Like we talked about, your gender, your skin color, your religion, your socioeconomic status, your nationality, all of those constructs are tribes. And the Matrix wants us to be divided. So it teaches us these different constructs. And so when we do start meeting other kids and, teenagers and adults, now we're basing our existence and our whole entire way we function with each other based on those constructs that we were taught a long time ago. So, for instance, you can have, let's say, for example, someone who is non-melanated person judging a brown melanated person. That comes from a parent. Or someone who grew up on, let's say, the right side of the tracks is judging someone who grew up on the other side of the tracks, so to say. So, guys, these are all things we learn, and these are the things that we have to unlearn about ourselves, which is why I encourage all of you guys to try to read The Habit of Unlearning Yourself by Joe Dispenza, is because he really goes into a deep, let's say, word or a deep research on how these downloads come, and then how we can go back into our minds and delete these constructs to free our minds. And guys, when you do all this work and you free your minds, now you can go through this dreamscape And you can see people as light beings instead of judging them for what you see on the outside. Yeah, we're still going to see the physical part, guys. That's just a part of this dreamscape. Like when you see me, you're going to see a brown, muscular guy. Now, the thing is, after, doing your unlearning, are you still going to judge me by the matrix constructs? Or are you just going to see past that suit and say, wow, bro, that looks really great, but I see that inner light in you, and I can say, wow, nice avatar, good job on choosing it. So we can have these conversations as different light travelers if we open our minds, guys, and just free ourselves from these matrix-bound constructs. They're all lies. It doesn't exist. We're all one. And like I talked about in episode 3 is when you just rip back the flesh, or when the flesh does melt off away from the body eventually, when we leave this consciousness, all they find is a Homo sapiens sapiens. So if you guys just think about that for a second and just really, like I said, open your minds that we're all the same avatar body. We can put these constructs away once and for all and come together as one, come together as a Homo sapien race, and we can finally move forward in being together. And that's my rant on these avatar bodies. So, like to talk about before, guys, the terrible twos, those are the questions. That's just the nature of the dreamer, nature of the animator learning about this physical body. And we're going to dive into why we learn these things so early, and why they're so imprinted in us at an early age, and how we take all this stuff into our teenage years and then adulthood. And we allow this to happen, and it's really not our fault that we allow it to happen. It's just the way this physical brain works. So when we're 0 or 1, if you guys know about brain waves, our brain comes at a delta waves, which is the lowest register, which is almost like a sleep or a really good dream. That's the best way to describe the delta waves. And then eventually our brains move into the theta. The theta brain waves is connected to our mainframe, or our hardware of our consciousness. We start to learn about it, and it's deep within our minds. The reason why we carry these constructs with us is because our brains move into theta. Now, eventually, as the years go on, we move into alpha. And alpha is kind of like that sweet bridge between the next category of brainwaves. Is theta and alpha connect. So whatever alpha learns is still downloading information into theta, which is the hardware, or like I said, the mainframe of your computer back there. So all that stuff we just talked about in the last few minutes, all that stuff, the alpha back to theta, is getting downloaded, is getting programmed. So that's why it's so hard to delete these programs as adults, because we've had them hardwired into that brain of ours, and we just accept the programming without actually thinking about the programming, doing a diagnostic test on the programming and deciphering if that program needs deleting, does it need altering, or do we keep it? And that's what I want you guys to realize about your brain. It's a computer up there. Whatever you pick up, whatever you download, you can uninstall it, undownload it, and get rid of it. And like I said, guys, you really have to know yourself to see and feel what needs to be downloaded. And we will talk about how to do that, or at least introduce you guys into how to do that and how I did it. And then, like I said, once we graduate from alpha, we go into beta brainwaves, which is what adult human beings go into. Most of our lives, actually, majority of our lives, is spent at the beta, which is the active mind, which is sometimes they call it the fight or flight mode in our lives. Is that we live in the beta, And the beta is pretty much like the overdrive if you're thinking about a car, or it's the fifth gear if you guys are manual car owners out there. It kicks into high gear for the rest of your life. I mean, we can go back through alpha, theta, and delta, but it takes a conscious mind to go back into those other brain waves, change those brain waves cohesively, and start deleting and downloading other stuff, and then come back into the beta and function. So we're gonna try to journey into all of that stuff to figure it out today. But like I said, it's delta, theta, alpha, the bridge, and then beta is where we program ourselves at. So those are the different brain waves, the reason why we picked up all this stuff over time. And if we never question it, guys, we take it through our whole entire lives. And like I said, we're surprised when we're just like our family. We're surprised when we're just like our parents, because we never took the work, never took the time to start questioning all those downloads that we got a long time ago. But I'm here to tell you guys, if you haven't started to question things, it's time. Today is time. This weekend is time. This month is time. Let's just do it. This year is time. If you guys haven't started that journey of asking questions, this is that time to give you guys the push to start asking yourself questions. And this is where also we start downloading the ego. We start downloading the physical ego. And like for me, I started to download and create the physical Al. Whatever I was born with, that lighthearted, playful being, over that development time between 0 and 7, actually around 3 or 4, I did some meditation on this. Around age of 3 or 4, I started to create the personality of Al. And those of you who know me or have known me for a very long time, the guy you're looking at or listening to is not the same person that I was 20, 30 years ago. He spoke very differently than what's in front of us now. Or he thought very differently, I'll say that. He thought very differently. So things were very different a long time ago, but for what you guys see now, it's a little different. But I downloaded Al and created Al, and that's where it came from. When I was in that theta alpha stage, I created Al. And then when I got to the beta stage, I just kicked into high gear, and I said, that's the way I function, that's the way I am, and it's not changing. And I wasn't very fluid. I'm fluid now. I wasn't fluid then. So that's just a prime example of my journey with my life and picking up downloads. And I'm going to do it again. I love the Matrix. Another analogy I could think of with the Matrix is, if you guys remember when Neo is first in the real world and Tank is telling him, you're gonna learn this, you're gonna learn that, you're gonna learn Taekwondo, you're gonna learn Jiu-Jitsu, and you see Neo is in this, he's conscious but he's sleep stage in his physical body. So that's a good way to explain how children get stuff downloaded, is their brain is still sleeping, but they're also still conscious at the same time. And if you guys notice with Neo, when Morpheus came to him after 10 hours, he was just like, what have you learned so far? He's like, I know jiu-jitsu. He was just like, well, show me. But before that, you see Neo in a weird, conscious, but aware sleep pattern. And again, guys, that's how we get our downloads as children, is like Neo, when Tank is giving him all the information, all the downloading, he's in and out of sleep. And that's how we learn, that's how we pick up these constructs. And moving on to the next thing, guys, once we leave the age of 7, we continue on with our avatar experience. And, after all that stuff gets hardwired into our mainframe of our computer, now we start holding on to what we learned. And we further deepen the tie of the avatar body, and we start to really defend the physical ego. And this is where the teenager and the adult come into play, is we get so hung up, so caught up on these physical avatar traits that we learned about ourselves is that we will eventually go to war with each other over these differences. We will believe the division. We will hate each other for being different, either different skin tones or ethnicities. And we'll also hate each other for different nationalities. And this is, or religious beliefs or economic statuses. And we just further divide ourselves without even consciously thinking about it that we're doing this. And this is where, like I said, guys, it's time to wake up and start asking yourself questions. Ask yourself questions on where your belief system came from. Why is it there? Do you want to keep your belief system? Do you want to delete it? Do you want to keep it? I just want you guys to, that's why I said, have your pen pad out and start jotting down some questions coming off the top of your head as you're listening to this podcast, is because there's a lot of questions I had to ask myself. I asked myself all these questions myself. So everything I'm talking about to you guys, it is everything I asked myself, which is true and honest. I'm doing the best, not doing my best. I am keeping this true and honest with you guys. And I'm going to open up and share a story. I wasn't going to do it, but I might as well. So I talked on, kids and adults hating on each other for the different skin tones. And I'll tell you guys a story. When I was probably 5 or 6, and I have this story in my journal. I was going along on the playground. We had recess one day, and you guys don't know this, but I predominantly grew up in a neighborhood with predominantly, let's say, white kids or Asian kids or Latinos. It really wasn't a whole bunch of people who looked like me in my neighborhood. So the school I went to was predominantly white, and as a kid, I didn't see it. Neither did other kids. But like we talked about, close to age 6 or 7, the kids start picking up these downloads from their parents. So, like I said, I was about 5 or 6, playing with my friends on the playground, and this one kid was just like, give me that ball back, you burnt toast. And I, at first, laughed it off. I didn't know what the heck that meant. My being didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it meant. So my true, authentic self just laughed it off. And I went on about my day without even, telling anyone. This kid just called me a derogatory term, which was burnt toast. And so, my mom picks us up from school. She's asking my sisters what they did. And then, since I'm the youngest, she finally comes to me, because that's the order always went. It was like my older sister, my other sister, and then me. So, I'm telling mom about my day, about what I learned in class. And then she was like, well, what else happened? And I said, oh, yeah, I was playing with such and such, and he called me burnt toast. She was like, she literally almost slammed on the brakes. She was like, what did you just say? And I said it again. I kid you not. I think my mom turned around, went back to the principal, had some words with him, came home. She told my dad what I said. And I'm just trying to get you guys to see the context of how hurtful this stuff can be. So now you have this 5, 6-year-old kid getting not schooled, but informed from his parents of what this is. I had to learn real quick about my skin tone, my ethnicity or race, as Americans always say it is. I had to learn all that. I learned all the derogatory terms that come with it. I had to learn about the hatred behind, me, this as avatar body as it looks. And for a 5 or 6-year-old little boy to have that reality put on him so early, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, it was truly overwhelming that I had to learn about my ethnicity so early on in life. And I wasn't going to share this, but I'm just going to put it out there. And it's, like I said, this is in my journal too. I remember being in the mirror. I think I was maybe like a year after that situation went down, because, the other kids, we took a break. like I said, that's right. It was summer break. We took a break and we come back. And after, when we started the new semester in a new grade, all of my friends I used to play with, you know, from the previous year are now playing amongst themselves. And I was excluded from a lot of their activities. And I thought back to, oh, they're excluding me because I'm this. So that translated to me as I didn't like my skin tone for a while. And I remember standing in the mirror at my parents' house because my sisters, they had their own bathrooms and I shared my bathroom with my parents. And I just remember my dad was out cutting the lawn. My mom was, you know, doing my sister's hair, and I'm left alone in the bathroom, and they had a full-length mirror in their house. And I just remember this memory of me just standing there, looking at myself and wishing I was a different color. And I was asking myself, why did you choose this color? And so, like I said, for the longest time, I wasn't comfortable with it. I didn't really like it. And it took a lot of time for me to accept it. I just said it is what it is. And like I touched on in my first video, I just swept it under the rug. And I just buried that emotion. I just buried that hurt for so long, up until this year and last year when I had to cry it out. And, you know, that's the memory I recalled as I was doing this awakening, is standing in front of a mirror as a little boy, wishing I wasn't this color, which I'm proud of now. But, you know, back when I was 6 or 7, it was a different Al. So once again, I had to alter the avatar Al, alter ego, and I just stuffed it under, and we just pretended as if we were okay with it, but we really weren't for a very long time. So that's my story on race and ethnicity with you guys. Like I said, I wasn't going to share it, but it was on my mind. So we're just putting it out there, so hopefully that can help someone else struggling with it, that you're okay. Like we talked about in my second video, is just remember you chose this body, you chose this gift. So treat it as a gift. Don't hate it, guys. Whatever comes about with it, just be proud of it, walk in it, lean into it. You chose it because it's beautiful. That's all I want to tell you guys. You are beautiful the way you are, and that is accepting yourself 100% and loving yourself 100%. And loving your higher being, because it chose it. So don't hate yourself, guys. Love your higher self. It will take care of you always. So just remember who you are, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. And then this is just another side note about, you know, coming into the social media world. Social media is great. It connects all of us together. But sometimes my problem with social media is the matrix can start infiltrating our social media. And what I mean by that is the matrix continues the survival mode, and they start promoting these videos, and I'm sure you guys have seen them before, these little shorts where it says, it's tying us closer to our physical identities. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm sure you guys have seen these videos saying, you know, of course I'm, let's say, fill in the blank, so I do this. Of course we're fill in the blank, so we do this. Those little TikTok videos are just further dividing us, further separating us to feel like we have nothing in common with each other. And I'm here to tell you guys, stop watching that stuff. That stuff is a lie. It's perpetuating division. That's what it's really doing initially. So if you guys see those videos, you know, you don't need to see that. You don't need to you don't need anyone to tell you who you are. Like we said, we only have this for 75 years. There's no point in believing all those avatar constructs that the Matrix wants us to believe. So if you guys are seeing those videos, or you're seeing these different things scrolling across your timeline, just report it, you know, or X them out. You don't need to see all that stuff. You know who you are. You know this is just a temporary vessel. So once again, guys, try not to let social media tell you who you are. And then, like I said, guys, it's just further dividing the illusion is further, let me say, is further promoting division. It's an illusion. Division is an illusion. We're all the same. But like I said, guys, this division thing is just another illusion. And that's what I want you guys to open your minds to as we go on to today. And then let's move on to another subject about this. With all that being said, learning about our physical avatar selves, we stop learning about the true authentic self. We are so busy being this avatar, learning the avatar, we stop or we push the higher self, like I talked about in my very first video, back, and back. And then your physical self, let's say physical Al, takes over. And that's why I said I felt like I was asleep, is because I had created so much of my avatar life around what I experienced as a kid, that Al took over, and then the higher self just said, well, you got the reins. I'm just going to take the back seat and observe the ride. And that's what I meant by I felt like I was asleep. So hopefully that explains what I touched on in the first video. And I also want to say, I created the physical Al, or the physical ego, out of survival. And that survival is belonging to my tribe. Learning what my tribe is, and I don't want to disappoint my parents. So, throw it all together, that's how our physical avatar egos get cemented into our hardware, pretty much. And like I said, guys, if we're not strong enough to ask questions, we're never going to learn ourselves. And that's what this podcast is about. And like I said, 3 or 4 wasn't the first time I started pushing my higher self back. My question for you guys is, when did you first push your higher self back? I want you guys to meditate on that as we go forward off from this episode, is just asking yourselves, at what age did you finally say, you know what, higher self, I'm taking over? And that's what I want you guys to ask yourselves as you go on with your week. And I'm going to say one more thing about this. I call this next slide the bridge to awakening. And the bridge to awakening is waking up to this dreamscape, waking up to this physical reality, that this physical reality is the illusion. This physical reality is a dream simulator. And like we talked about in the beginning of this episode, this is the dreamscape. The dreamscape can be changed. You guys are the creator. And when you believe you are the creator, like I said, you can now start altering and becoming the mental alchemist of your life. And I don't want you guys to forget that as you go forward with this episode, is do not forget that. You become the mental alchemist when you remember who you are and when you get in touch with yourself. That's when you start really bending the rules and making this dreamscape work for you for once. But back to bridging the gap. So like we talked about, we learn to defend the ego, and we defend it with everything that we have, that we leave the soul wide open for attack. And the reason why I say attack is we get the attack from this physical world. We get the attacks from the matrix. And, if you guys aren't strong enough, beings, you will just believe anything anyone tells you. And your higher self does start talking to you. But guess what we do? Guess what I did as physical Al, as ego Al? I ignored it. I said, well, that's my inner voice, whatever. I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's how I journey through life a lot of my time. I've heard my higher being talk to me. But, Al just ignored it, and he did what he wanted to do. But back to, like I said, attacks on your higher self is If you guys are busy defending the avatar, who is there to defend your higher self? Guess what, guys? You're supposed to be defending your higher self. You're supposed to be the one blocking attacks, blocking hurtful things, blocking people from telling you who you are. Nobody can tell you who you are. It's just you know who you are. No one, the Matrix cannot tell you who you are, guys. The Dreamscape cannot tell you who you are. And that's another key point I want you guys to take away from this is nobody can tell you, not even this physical Matrix world can tell you who you are. You have the key answers inside of you. You have the key answers there. And you have to pull those answers out and finally start asking questions. So like I said, guys, if you're asleep and distracted defending your avatar, you're too busy. You can't defend your higher self. So it's now time to unlearn that avatar body and start focusing on your higher self and bringing your higher self into high gear, finally, making it become the driver and not just the passenger anymore. So, like we said, like I talked about, we know how we lost our higher selves. Now, how do we get back in contact with our higher selves? And I had not a difficult time figuring this out, but when I started my journey, it took a while for me to figure it out how to search for it. Because I thought it was this really huge thing that I had to do, but it was a really simple thing, and I'm going to share that with you guys. It's just being mentally aware. And what I mean by mentally aware is just knowing that you are the animator, knowing that you are the dreamer in there. That's how you become aware that this temporary physical body is not all of you. It's a part of you, but it's not all of you. Where you really reside is in this consciousness. This is your consciousness. And like we talked about before when Morpheus said, the body cannot live without the mind makes this all real. That's why you hear some people say, if you guys listen to some other podcasts or other self-help books, that none of this is real. But I'm here to tell you guys, it may or may not be real, but guess what? It does make this thing real. Your mind, your consciousness makes this all real. So whatever you guys experience in the physical world, your mind makes it real. So that's why I keep going back to the hardware, to the mainframe of how you guys should go about your lives and being conscious of it. And another way to get back in touch with your higher self is meditation and breath work. When you are meditating, like we talked about before in my second episode, when you start to become aware of yourself, aware of your consciousness, that's when you start to become self-aware and you start self-observation. And you start scanning your body, you start scanning your mind when you're in these meditations. That's why I think I mentioned in my second episode as well, I started with just being aware and listening to the sounds. But when I said I do something a little more advanced now, that advanced work is tapping into my higher self and asking it questions when I'm meditating. Like I said, the answers may not come right away, but they eventually will come through and come through to Al. And then I can start thinking about it and seeing where that came from and how that looked. And I think maybe I should read something to you guys. Let's see. I had marked some research, but I swear the research is not going to be as bad as last time. That was a lot of research. Okay, this is from Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself from Joe Dispenza. And it's just one line that I highlighted when I was reading this. It says, let's just unmemorize our self-limiting emotions. And I'm going to add on to that. A memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. And what he's talking about here is we learn self-limiting emotions. We learn fear, which I talked about. We learn stress. We learn how, like I said, how to lie, how to keep things in. We learn how to be sad. We learn how to be depressed. Those are all self-limiting emotions in life. And we don't really learn happiness. Happiness comes with the basic factory settings, as I say. But all that other stuff is just things we download over the years. But we rarely learn about happiness. We rarely learn about bliss. We rarely know what it means to be cheerful. Only time we're really cheerful is when we're kids. But after that, the Matrix wants you to believe that this is just a physical nightmare and you're a sinner and you shouldn't be questioning anyone. You shouldn't be questioning the system. This is what you should be doing. This is what you should be doing your whole life. Like I talked about in one of my shorts, we believe this Matrix life. They say go to school. They say get a big house. They say get a nice car. They say go have kids. They say go get a nice job and get paid all this money. Well, are you happy? Let's say you do achieve all those things. Are you happy, or are you just pretending to be happy? And then that same model of standard, let's say someone is going through life and they're like, well, I didn't go to school, so I can't be successful. I never got that big house, so I'm not successful. I never got that really fancy car, I'm not successful. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you that you are. And I was reading the book, I just finished the book, The Art of Contemplation. And a line that resonated with me in that book was, I breathe, therefore I'm prosperous. And I want to say that again. I want you guys to really let that sink in on this episode. I breathe, therefore I prosper. And when I read that line, all of those expectations that physical Al put on himself, it just melted away. Because I was still, I was still struggling with a few things in my life. And I was still trying to obtain them. And like I said, when I read that line, all of that just melted away, which pretty much says, as you're breathing and existing here in this physical body, that's prosperous enough. There's probably, I don't know how many souls are waiting to have a physical body, and you have this opportunity to have a physical body and live in this dream. So with that being said, guys, we have to evolve our minds and evolve our thinking that we are the lucky ones. We are the gift. So when you guys start thinking about your gift, you're breathing, you're blinking your eyes, your heart's beating still, and you're still able to function and be a human being, you're prosperous, you're prosperity, you're rich, you're wealthy already. You don't need to obtain all this stuff. It's great. It's great to have. But when you guys think about it, you have everything that you're ever going to need in this life within your body. All this other matrix physical stuff is just the icing on the cake. But what I want you guys to realize is here. It's here. Everything you need to be a successful star traveler, successful cosmic missionary is all inside of you. And that's what I want you guys to take away from this episode as well, that you don't need all that stuff to be happy. All you need to do is love yourself, be happy with yourself, and it's just going to come out of you. And you're not going to really notice it. Maybe you will notice it one day. Others may notice it. But once you guys remember that, you just breathing, you're prosperous. I think that's a really big step in evolving and growing your evolution. Let me take a little break for tea. Hang on. And I'm going to talk about the inner child. And there's a reason why I'm sure most of you guys have been to a therapist, a life coach, or maybe you heard other people talk about this on other podcasts, is remembering your inner child. And as I was going about this, I kept hearing the same thing. I'm like, why is everyone always harping on the past? Why is everyone always talking about getting to know your inner child? And what I landed on was the reason why everyone keeps talking about your inner child is because the inner child holds all the secrets to your divine soul. Why do I say that? Like we talked about before in the beginning of this episode, when we're born on this planet, we are living our true authentic selves. We're crying, if we're fussy, if we're quiet, if we're happy, that little kid is existing closer to their higher self. And like we talked about before, it takes the village or the society to tell that being who they are and what they are in this physical world. And that's why the inner child, or the young child that you guys, are, it has brought you guys to this point, and it holds all the secrets. Yeah, the inner child holds all the secrets. I'm here to tell you guys that. And like I said, the soul, when we're really young kids, it behaves or animates the way it wants to be down here. But like I talked about before, when we start creating this physical personality, that's when we stop being our true authentic selves and we start being someone else. And that is a big problem with being in this avatar body, is the Matrix wants us to believe all of our physical attributes define us, but actually our inner child is the one that holds the secret. So if you guys haven't ventured into meditating and talking with your inner child, I really suggest you guys do, so you can understand the secrets of yourself, understand the secrets of your soul, and get back in touch with your soul. And I think that'd be a great start as you guys journey forward from this episode. And let's see. This is getting in touch with the inner child is essentially the awakening of being aware. And I want to also add in by saying, like I said, when I talked about your soul's under attack, is when you don't know yourself, you start to follow and believe what anyone tells you. They start telling you all these bad things. And I think in my last episode, I finished with, people who do go to church or some other place, and, people are telling you who you are. And I told you guys you need to hear that negative energy. This is what I mean by the attacks, is that you get those attacks on your physical, your higher self, and then your physical body starts downloading and telling your higher self about itself. But there's a misconnect. There's a little bit of a fight in there, because your higher being is going to start talking to you, and if you override your higher being, more than likely it's not going to be a good show. It's not going to be a good outcome. So once again, guys, if you don't know who you are, you're going to start believing anything anyone tells you. My mom always told us that. I never understood what that meant until this year, and I truly understand what that means. When you start to believe anything anyone tells you, you're going to believe it. And I'm here to tell you guys to wake up, stop believing that stuff. You know who you are, and you have to, if you don't know who you are, let's find the answers of who you are. Which brings me to the Matrix again. And this happens at the Oracle's apartment. When Morpheus finally takes Neo to see the Oracle, and she points to a sign in Latin. It says, Nosce de ipsum, which is thine own self know, which is an old Latin word or Roman word for know thyself. And that's what she points to to Neo, is when you know yourself, no one else can tell you otherwise. You can hear it, or you listen to it, but ultimately you know who you are, and none of that stuff can phase you. That's how you guys evolve into being unbothered, is when you know yourself. You won't get so bent out of shape when someone's calling you names and this, that, and another thing. You can effectively, calmly tell people who you are. You don't have to raise your stress levels and cortisol levels and get all bent out of shape and you start shaking. Like I said, guys, when you know thyself, when you know yourself, you can just calmly tell people who you are, or just be unbothered by it. You just ignore it and walk away. That's what being unbothered really is. When you guys get to know yourselves, this is when the unbothered behavior starts. And let me see. And like I said, I'm going to circle back to meditation. And meditation is really where you become aware of the animator. And I'm just going to say this. This is my own personal take on this. When I started meditating again intensely, I noticed there's two energies within inside of me. And what I mean by two energies is the first energy is my higher self, and then the second energy is my physical Al self. And so those two were out of sync for a very long time. And like I talked about over this last year more intensely, I have gotten those two, back into sync. So Al and my higher self are synced up now. That's the reason why I'm doing this podcast. But it's just an example to you guys to let you know that when you're aware of those two energies within inside of you and you bridge them together in a cohesive way, you start to learn the ways of each other. Now you can both go forward and be a creator, be a aware dreamer, that you know about your physicalness, but then you also know about your other energy, which is your higher self. And that's how I've gone forward in the last couple of months. And just going through my day, going through my life, going through my weeks, going through my months, I feel like I'm truly, living this dream. I'm truly aware of this dream. And there are some, rules that I do bend and alter. And it's just been a really great, amazing experience to finally be in this body, be in this physical consciousness, and really enjoy it. And I've been really, I want to say, excited and really in love with my life over the last couple months. So that's another thing I want you guys to think about is if you feel you're struggling with, other energies in there, you as the animator, you just have to, like a puppet or an animator like Walt Disney, get all those personalities together to live in harmony, and then you guys can go forward and be the creator. You can shut that noise out, and you can stop dividing everybody in there, and you can start coming together. So that's a shout out to a friend of mine if he's listening to this. Nothing really wrong with you, man. Just you just gain control of your energies and go forward. I just want to say that before we move on. Let's see, what else can I say? Time is ticking. I'll circle back to meditation. And I'm actually going to read this one. This is also from the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, where the definition of meditation, I'm going to read this from the book. It says, in the Tibetan language, to meditate is to become familiar with. And that is why I encourage all of you guys to meditate, is because you really start to become aware of yourself when you start meditating. Because you're observing yourself. You're observing how your skin feels. You're observing how your nose feels. You're observing your eyes in this physical world. You observe your hands. You do a scan of your body. And if you guys do really advanced work, once your eyes are closed, sometimes you can see the aura of yourself, and sometimes it changes colors. Sometimes it's this golden radiance, sometimes it's a purple radiance, sometimes it's a pink, depending on your vibrations for the day. So, like I said, guys, once you start really tapping into to yourself and your conscious self, all of these things start coming forward to you in the physical realm, your physical mind. And you really start to grow and get in touch with yourself and become familiar with yourself. That is the biggest thing I learned about this. And then it goes on to say another way to think about this transition is when we go from being a doer to a watcher. Well, actually, a watcher to a doer. So, what that means by that is, like we talked about before, being in this avatar body. We go from just watching life ahead of us, and now I'm shifting into actually not shifting. I have shifted into the doer, and those are two different things, because we oftentimes just watch life as it happens to us, and then we just react to it. Now going forward, I know myself, and I want you guys to think about this too, is that when you become the doer for once, you really start taking charge of your life. You're creating a life for yourself, and you're enjoying that created life. And so through meditation, I feel you guys can do that, because I've done it. I've shifted from being the watcher to the doer, and it's been a really amazing experience so far. I like doing it. And then I'm also going to talk about, so that's in the Tibetan script. And then I'm going to talk about to meditate in the Sanskrit. And Sanskrit, if you guys don't know what Sanskrit is, those are ancient Indian cultural texts. I haven't read them all yet, but I've read a few. So to meditate in Sanskrit, it says to cultivate self. And if you guys have ever, cultivated a garden, a field, or let's say cultivated plants at your where you guys live, the Indians were taking this cultivation into an agricultural sense, meaning that our life is like a garden, and there was a time that the gardener was once present at the garden, tending it, watering it, filling it with beautiful things, and that cultivator or that gardener was your inner child. There was a time your inner child was there, playing, creating, planting, pruning, watering, fertilizing. It was doing all these beautiful things. And then, like we talked about before, the avatar constructs come along, and guess what the child does? The child puts away the tools, puts away the love, locks up the garden, and walks away from it for other adventures. And I did that exact same thing. I locked up my garden for a very long time, and I let it go. And I'm here to tell you guys, it's time to come back to your childhood garden, open the gates, cut the lock off, and open the tool shed and get to work. And meditation is that tool shed where you guys need to use that to get to work on your garden. And if you guys have ever come into like an old house or a space where there was a garden at one time, and you're looking at this space like, where do I start? Well, I'm here to tell you guys, this is where to start. Start pulling up the weeds. And what I mean by pulling up the weeds is you have to start deleting these programs within your hardware. You have to start pruning back the bushes, pruning back the old growth on the trees, maybe pull up some bushes. And this is just a metaphor for what needs to happen in your mind. When you guys are pruning and cutting and pulling things up, that is deleting all of that stuff that we just talked about out of your mind. And then you also got to kick out the vermin. And that could be burnt out relationships you guys are hanging on to. You have just got to get into that garden and just clear it out. Clean it up, clear it out. And like I said, it takes pruning, shoveling, hoeing, deleting, cleaning out all this stuff, kicking out the vermin, kicking out the rats and any other vermin, squirrels that are clogging up your garden. And that's the best way to tell you guys how to do this. And I encourage all you guys to get the soil tiller out, which means to till up all that compacted emotional baggage, all that emotional trauma. turn that old compacted soil over into fresh new soil. And that's really just letting go of the learned ego. And when I was thinking about this episode, that's what I thought about, was turning over new soil, deleting all that stuff, unlearning yourself. So now when you guys have tilled the soil over, you flipped it over, now your brain is ready to receive again, like you did as a kid. So that's what I was going back to with our meditation on this episode, and explaining how we go forward in our brainwaves. So touching back on the garden is, let's say you've done the work, you cleared out the space, you maybe planted new plants, you put in some seeds to grow. And that's just learning and going on a journey of asking yourself questions, reading books, journaling. Those are all just metaphors for just what you guys should be doing once you cleared everything out. You start to re-download, or maybe download new constructs, new behaviors, and you plant new ones. And when all that's ready to grow and when it's nurtured, guys, your garden will come back to life. So for those of you who are thinking that, I'm just too old, or, it's too late, it's never too late to clear your garden out. There is plenty of time for you guys to clear your gardens before your consciousness leaves that garden forever, or leave this body. So that's what I want you guys to think about, as we go forward. So like I said, the weeds, compacted soil, old plants are all metaphors for cleaning and deleting these old learned emotions, old learned habits that we got as kids. This is that time to start unlearning those behaviors, and also to stop and unlearn, not stop, but unlearn familiar bodily reactions. And when you guys do all that stuff, you are now ready for a new garden in your life. You have prepped your garden. So when the time and the season is right, you can automatically blossom and come into your true, authentic self. And that's where I landed when I was pulling this episode together, is going back over my journey and what has landed me here in front of you guys. And that's what helped me to understand this whole process of how to start a new life, how to start a new fresh garden. And I've chosen a few things from Joe's book to talk to you guys about. I want you guys to write this down too. I want you to choose an emotion as you go forward from this episode and unmemorize it. And I'm going to go through a few emotions that, I learned, and you guys probably know of too. And you guys are very familiar with these emotions. So I'm just going to read through a few of them. You guys can jot these down, or you can come up with your own memorized emotions that you need to unmemorize. So I'm going to start with, one of them is insecurity, judgment, depression, suffering, anxiety, greed, fear, sadness, anger, resentment, unworthiness, regret. So take one of those that I just mentioned, or take all of them, and you guys do some soul searching to unmemorize those emotions. And what I mean by unmemorize is, like we just talked about in my previous episodes, when you know how to be an alchemist, you can unlearn these behaviors. So let's say fear. And if you guys remember the polarity axiom, the exact polarity of fear is being unafraid. So when next time you guys come into a fearful emotion, recognize it. And when you recognize and feel it, yeah, you're still going to feel it. Now you as an alchemist can turn that into being unafraid. So that's what I mean by rules can be bent. Rules can be changed or altered. You can become the alchemist now, because now you're actively changing your outcome. So the body is receiving fear. It's coming in. Your brain is recognizing it. Now you as an animator can flip that fear into being unafraid. Now I'm unafraid of something. Or anger. When you feel anger again, the body's going to register it. It's going to send a message to the brain. You're going to get all flustered. But like I said, guys, you being an alchemist, now you can say, you know what? I can turn that anger into happiness right in that moment. So that's what I mean by going forward, guys, and unlearning these behaviors is just trying to remember that polarity axiom and just switch those negative emotions into something positive. And you can do that right in the moment, all the time. For example, I'll give you guys an example. A few weeks ago, I had my door open. It was a nice breeze out. I was going about my morning. I was watering my plants indoor and outside. And I'm getting ready to go to the coffee shop. And right in my hallway, I saw this gecko. And I jumped back in fear, right? And so I'm standing there looking at it. It's probably, recognizing my presence too. And instead of me leaning into the old owl, which was to just go get some ready to go kill it, I recognized the fear. I switched over my alchemist mind, and I loved it. I turned fear into love. And I backed away. I asked myself, what do we do? What came out of me was get a cup, like a Starbucks cup, an empty one, and trap the creature, and then take it out into nature again where it belongs. And that's exactly what I did. I got the cup. Before I approached the gecko, I said, I love you. I'm sorry you're in my house. There's nothing in this house for you. You belong outside. And I said that a couple times, as I approached the creature, was I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to give you back to Mother Gaia. And you guys if you guys ever come across with creatures or amphibians, they're very skittish. So it was a little skittish at first, but as I was talking to it, it calmed down, and I kept trying to trap it. I wasn't getting a good seal on it. And, as I'm trying to trap it, it just does like the slow progression to my bathroom, and I was able to put the cup over the creature, and I was able to trap it. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I got a piece of paper, slid it underneath the cup, and I'm talking to the creature as I'm putting it outside. I thought I still love it. It stayed still the whole time. And I took it out to the lawn area in my apartment complex, and I let it go. I said, now you're released back to Mother Gaia, and it scampered off. So that's this example of how I'm living my life now, guys. It's just like, yeah, I feel it, but then right in that moment, I'm like, okay, fear, let's turn it into love. Fear, let's turn it back into being unafraid. So that's what I want you guys to go forward with is, once again, guys, choose an emotion, unmemorize it, and then as you guys go about your days, if it happens to you again, like I said, remember the emotion, and then now you guys are the alchemists. You can understand what it is and flip it into something else that's more positive for you, and you can stop living unafraid. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys today before we finish up this podcast. And, like we talked about our gardens, I want you guys to create a space in your mind for reflection and contemplation. If you guys want to start or think about, having like a reflecting pool in your mind, or a bench to sit at, or maybe you have lawn chairs sitting out in your gardens, those are all like really good things to think about as you're meditating. Is you're sitting back and reflecting on yourself, and it's just a place to contemplate. And if you guys never declutter your mind and create these zen-like places in your head, you're never going to grow. How are you going to grow if everything is cluttered in your mind? So that's what I want you guys to go forward with, is just decluttering your mind so you can make space in your garden, make space in your mind for you guys to contemplate. And I want to say another thing that really resonate with me is forgiveness. Forgiveness was the biggest thing that started me on this whole entire journey. And the thing I say when I start with forgiveness is you start to get to know yourself. You really start having some truthful conversations with yourself. You really start to admit the truth to yourself. No more lying, no more pretending that it doesn't exist. It is just time that you talk to yourself, admit to yourself, and once you guys start forgiving yourself about things in your life, your higher being is going to come back. It's going to be safe again. It's going to feel like it's safe enough to come back. And a really good prayer that helped me during my time on my journey was a Hawaiian prayer. It's Ho'oponopono, and it's called the 4 pillars of the Hawaiian practice of forgiveness. And these 4 pillars it starts with I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. So those are the 4 principles. I'll say it one more time. It's I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. And this Hawaiian prayer is just taking full responsibility for everything you've done in your life. It starts with a confession, which is I'm sorry, repentance, which is forgive me, and then the thank you and I love you is for the reconciliation. So you guys can really start to be honest with yourselves. Stop hoarding those buried emotions, and this prayer just helps you to finally deal with all that stuff that you have buried deep within your mind. And it starts, like we just said, taking accountability and responsibility for all of your actions. And when you guys say this for a couple days to yourselves, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, your body, your mind, your soul, it just starts to clear itself out. The cleaning starts. And, I would really encourage you guys to say these words out loud is because, like we talked about in my second episode, the quantum field around us is listening. So even if the person that you're saying forgive me to, they may or may not be in your life, but the quantum field hears it, and now it's out into the field, and it hears that I'm sorry. So I really encourage you guys to look it up. It's a really good forgiveness pillar. That's a beautiful thing from the Hawaiian culture. So if you guys have ever been to Hawaii before, and truly been to Hawaii, outside of Honolulu, or Oahu, it's a really beautiful culture. Once you guys really start diving into the Hawaiian Islands, and like I have, it's just a really beautiful culture out there. But anyway, guys, try that. And I think you really enjoy that prayer. It helped me quite a lot, and how I deal with everyone from my family to other friends. I think it's a wonderful tool to start with and continue. I still do it to this day. Actually, I still use the 4 pillars of the Hawaiian prayer. And another thing I want to say before I wrap up: patience is key, guys. Like I said before, when I was asking myself questions, they didn't come, and I wasn't patient. So I encourage all of you guys, as you're doing this garden clean, mind clean, be patient with yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Like I said, once you guys continue to do your meditations, everything will come to you eventually, and it's going to come sporadically, or it comes up all at one time. But I think if you guys start being patient with yourself, give yourself time, it's all going to come together. And then before I wrap things up, guys, I have one more card that I wrote out that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and that's the word evolution. And the word evolution, let's talk about it. It just means to evolve, right, guys? Evolution means to come to be a better evolved being a better evolved person. And I always like the word evolution, that it holds that we get to grow, we get to, get back in touch with our soul, get back in touch with our, child again. If you follow your heart, that's the biggest thing I want you guys to do and take away from this, is just to follow your heart, and your life will be a lot better. And I'm going to say this too, and I saw this in another podcast, was the word evolution. When you read the word backwards, it says, know it you love. And I'm going to say that again. Know it you love. So that evolution is a hidden message saying, know what you love. And that's a part of getting back in touch with the inner child. When you guys remember the things that you love to do as a kid, that's remembering your inner child. So that's what I want you guys to go forward with that, is getting back to love, getting back to knowing what you love. And that takes time and patience to do that. So do not be hard on yourselves, guys. I think it will go far. Well, that is all the time I have on this episode. That's all I wanted to say to you guys about knowing yourselves, is starting with meditation, starting with breath work. Once you guys do that and being aware of yourself, now you can start doing the hard work, and you can start uninstalling stuff that you learned over your time here on this planet, time here in this physical dreamscape, and you can start being the true mental alchemist you're meant to be. So guys, upcoming projects for me, or upcoming things like I talked about tonight, is just me just letting go and just being, a regular human being. And then also I'll be doing the Vitality breathwork event out here in San Diego, which is on September 26th. I'll be back. So I'll try to record that to see, to let you guys in on his experience. So I want to just try that out. I think it's going to be a great experience, and I should have another episode coming up for you guys. Maybe not next week, but maybe the week after. So that's just me going forward. So once again, guys, thanks again for tuning in to Who is the Animator on the Cosmic Mission, which is episode 4, and I will see you guys on episode 5. Have a beautiful weekend, all of you cosmic missionaries, guys, and I will see you again. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful, beautiful weekend.